This week, Pulling Power tests the new in-car mapping system that also steers you round the jams. Cut price Porsches, how to run a supercar on a hatchback budget. And the roadside test that may mean tougher times for dopey drivers.
Arigato gozaimashita, genki desu ka, and welcome to Japan, and specifically Mount Fuji, which you can just about see on the horizon over there. We're here, not too far from Tokyo, to test drive this car, the brand new Japanese-built Honda Jazz. You remember a few weeks ago we looked at the new Ford Fiesta and we weren't overwhelmed with that car. Quite frankly, there was not much reason to buy it. Is there any reason to buy this car, the new Honda Jazz? Well, I'm about to find out because I'm about to drive it. But before I do that, I've got to tell you, that is not Mount Fuji. This is not Japanese soil. In fact, this is frozen Spanish soil. We've got here a Japanese car company that, despite the fact that they've got a factory in Swindon, are still building cars like this not far from Tokyo, shipping them all the way to Britain, bringing us out to Spain to drive them. And what are we on? Oh yeah, German number plates. Welcome to the wacky world of car launches.
On Pulling Power, we go anywhere for a scoop. Moscow, the Nevada desert, Basingstoke even. So when Honda invited us out to Madrid for the first drive of the Jazz, we thought it'd be a breeze. But sadly, the rain in Spain doesn't always fall on the plane. It sometimes falls on the best laid plans of mighty car companies. But enough of the weather, let's talk about the car. It's already a sales success in Japan, but it needed one major change before coming to the UK. The name. After all, would you have had a Fit? No, well, Honda agrees. So in Europe, it will be called the Jazz.
It staggers me when you're in a car like this because you're in a Super Mini, and quite honestly, I could be in a large family saloon from where I'm sitting. Vision is perfect, 1.4 litre engine, power is more than adequate, leg room, tons of it. I could put this seat back several more inches. Headroom, you can see for yourself. I mean, it feels like a big car.
The ride is fine around town and it grips bends tenaciously. The only time the car does get caught out is on fast motorways, where it can feel jittery on poor surfaces. Otherwise, this is one very refined Super Mini.
On two separate occasions in this car, I've been sitting in it, the engine has been idling away in the background, and it's so quiet I didn't know it was still running. And I've gone to turn the ignition key to switch the engine on, despite the fact that it was already on. I mean, you know, that is quiet. And we ain't talking expensive luxury palatial cars here. We're talking sub £9,000 Super Mini.
And that lack of road and engine noise makes for stress-free driving, as does the cabin. Well, it may not be the most radical of designs, but it's logically laid out with everything just where you'd expect it. The plastic trim is cheap looking, but it somehow doesn't feel it. And how many other cars allow you to practice origami? The designers had the bright idea of moving the fuel tank safely below the front seats, which means you can fold all the passenger seats into virtually any combination you can think of, plus a few more. Honda were so chuffed with the space in the Jazz that they even laid on a little demonstration for us. You're going to like this. If you're a mum or dad fed up with being used as a taxi service, be warned. This shows you can squeeze 18 teenagers into a Jazz. Just think about that. But if you'd rather give them the keys to their very own little runabout, then this could be the car. Because Honda have got the insurance down to a not unreasonable Group 3, or about the same as Vauxhall's vile little Aguila, and the Jazz is light years ahead in just about every respect. For those on a tight budget, the Jazz will do up to 57 mpg, and for those with green leanings, the CO2 emissions are ultra low. We've tried hard to find fault with the Jazz, but the reasons to buy one just keep stacking up. Every car comes with standard power steering, central locking, the list goes on and on and on. And for every Jazz that's imported into the UK from Japan, 2 British-built Civics from Swindon get exported back to the land of the rising yen. So there you have it, the Honda Jazz. Nice.
Britain has the most congested roads in Europe, and it's getting worse. Cities like London are fast grinding to a halt. So what can we do to avoid all this traffic? Well, Toyota have come up with a little gizmo that might just help. In-car satellite navigation systems have been around for a while, but they don't seem to have taken off. It seems that either drivers just don't like them or they don't trust them. Recently, Toyota launched ETA, or Electronic Traffic Avoidance. It provides navigation with a traffic congestion detection system. Like all navigation systems, you put in your start and finish points and it'll direct you. But this one's unique. It will also alert you to traffic problems before you encounter them.
In 2 miles, closed road.
We've set up a test for it on the road up ahead, so let's see if it works.
We're just going down the A41 to London, and the system has just told me that there's some sort of traffic obstruction coming up. So it's going to give me a detour. I don't know when and I don't know where, so I'll just have to wait and see.
In 1 mile, closed road. Detour possible.
And it comes up on the screen.
In 1 mile, closed road.
Detour.
Detour possible.
So what I have to do is press enter, and then she'll find me an alternative route, I hope.
In 1 mile, sharp left turn.
There you go, that's my alternate route. So this is it, I'm on my detour. She's taking me off the A41. She's going to take me round and about, missing the closed roads and then back onto the A41. That's the plan anyway. Unless she's been listening to me, she doesn't like me and she's just taking me away somewhere mean.
Heading slightly left at the roundabout. Take first exit.
So how much does this new device cost? Well, it comes as standard with some Avensis, and you can get it for £1,250 on a Corolla. But that's on top of the cost of satellite navigation, so it's not cheap.
And we're coming up to the sign which says London.
Right turn coming up.
A41, take a right. So she's done us proud. She's getting us back onto the A41. It wasn't too difficult.
The test we did was fairly straightforward. However, when we used the system in cities, it didn't work as well. It has a habit of diverting you from one queue of traffic to the next, and on one occasion drove us straight into a whopping traffic jam with no warning. So where does the system get its information from?
This is Traffic Link in London on the 29th floor of Centrepoint.
It's still very busy around the Hardwick roundabout.
Flying along the A12 at the moment, just looking at the roadwork stretch. If you are heading southbound, this is where you're going to find some long delays.
At the touch of a button, operators here can view from over 400 CCTV cameras positioned around London. They can also get information from telephone hotlines. Frustrated drivers can phone in when they're stuck in jams.
Another vital source of information is called floating vehicle data. Over 1,000 Eddie Stobart lorries have been fitted with GPS units, which feed back their position and speed to a computer. Like all systems, ETA is only as good as the information that it's given. It's not perfect, but it does allow the driver to make informed decisions. Once you've learned ETA's strengths and weaknesses, it can be a useful tool to have.
But personally, I don't really like someone speaking to me,
In quarter of a
giving me
mile,
instructions
keep left.
throughout my journey.
In quarter
Shut
of a
up!
mile, keep left.
She talks a lot. That's my job.
You've got the house, you've got the clothes, you've got the lifestyle, but more importantly, you've got the car.
Porsche. There really is no substitute. It's amazing to think the original 911 was launched in 1964, and what makes the 911's long life all the more remarkable is that as car designs go, it's all wrong. The early cars had a fearsome reputation for wild handling. But as we found out at this test track in the Midlands, things have really, really changed.
This 911 is an absolutely wonderful experience. Forget all the tail-happy nature of the previous car. This car is the business. Whoa, 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 what a beautiful power slide.
At around £75,000 new, for most people the thought of owning a 911 is just a dream. But herein lies the world's best kept secret. You too can live that dream for a lot less than you think. How much? Well, you can pick them up very cheap, but be warned, 911s are often used and abused. So,
to stand a chance of getting a hassle-free 911, you've got to be prepared to spend 20 grand. That's the bad news. The good news is, you could have one of these.
But which should you choose? Well, you could go for contestant number 1. She's a real-life wire who loves exotic rubber and expensive mechanics. She's a real stunner.
So you could go the whole hog and buy the 911 Turbo. After all, what a beautiful looking car. This car really exudes the classic lines of a 911. But for your £20,000, you're going to be getting a car without ABS and without power steering. And with all that power coming from the back end, you're going to be locking up those wheels most of the time. This car is going to cost you a bomb to run. It's not really your everyday 911.
So how about contestant number 2? Over the years, she's piled on the pounds, but everyone loves her. And when she gets hold, she never lets go.
The 911 Carrera 4 tends to be the buyer's favourite. This car gives people that added feeling of safety and security as a result of having that four-wheel drive and getting over those tail-happy sliding habits of the Carrera 2. But if you're a track day hero, this isn't your car, because on fast bends you tend to find that the differentials tend to lock up and they interfere with that pure cornering experience.
So that leaves contestant number 3. Classic good looks with a great personality. Treat her with respect though, or she could end up ditching you.
If you really want the ultimate 911 drive, it has to be this, the Carrera 2. At 70 kilograms lighter, this car is faster than the Carrera 4. For me, this is where I would put my money. Now this car might be 10 years older and 50 grand cheaper, but it's really still got that lovely 911 feel. Okay, so the back end isn't all that controllable, but it's still great fun to drive. Onto the straight now. This time we're doing about 100 miles an hour in third gear. Going through 120 in fourth gear. And now you can't hear me, but we're doing 150. 150 miles an hour, not bad, not bad.
So, what should you look for? Well, when you buy a Porsche, condition is everything. The bodies are all galvanized, so rust shouldn't be a problem. Engines too are bulletproof. So don't discount one just because it's got a high mileage. But if you have any doubts, just walk away. There are plenty more out there.
Got a tight right-hander coming up here. You're wary of all that weight behind you. You can feel the back end slipping a little bit, but you can still control it. It's absolutely spot on. Remember, you can buy this car for less than the price of a new Mondeo. And what else is there to have better fun in than something like this?
And finally, a word of caution. Make sure you thoroughly check the service history and do buy from a reputable dealer. It may cost you more, but it will be worth it in the end.
Next, cannabis and cars, how new tests means tougher times for drug drivers.
Of the post that I wonder if...
Roll another.
Last year, Home Secretary David Blunkett hit the headlines by announcing his intention to downgrade cannabis to a Class C drug. As a result, cannabis users are now highly unlikely to face any kind of criminal prosecution. Whether changes in the law will mean an increase in drug use or not remains to be seen. But the recent debate has raised an issue of particular relevance to motorists. What effect does drug taking have on our ability to drive? Pulling Power decided it was time to throw some light on the subject and saw the facts from the fiction. We paid a visit to the Transport Research Laboratory in Berkshire for an unbiased scientific view. How big a problem is drug driving?
We don't really know the full extent of drug driving, but a recent study we did of the incidence of drugs in fatalities showed a 5 or 6-fold increase over the last decade. And this is really what started to raise concerns and raise awareness that drugs driving is a real issue and a real problem.
A report by the RAC highlighted further evidence of the problem. It claimed that 36% of people who responded to a recent drug driving survey admitted that they drove under the influence of drugs at least once a month, with cannabis by far the most common drug taken by drivers. In 1999, the government commissioned the TRL to carry out an extensive study into the effects of cannabis on drivers. 15 regular users were given varying amounts of the drug and were then asked to take the wheel of the lab's state-of-the-art driving simulator. The resulting report proved highly controversial, with pro-cannabis campaigners claiming it proved the drug could actually make you a better driver. Researchers found their volunteers drove slower and more cautiously after taking cannabis than before. Dr. Rob Tunbridge was in charge of the study. So in your view, should you drive and take cannabis?
That's a very leading question. The recent TRL study showed that your driving is certainly affected by cannabis. It slows your reaction times. People are aware that they're driving under cannabis and they drive more cautiously, but that doesn't necessarily mean to say that they drive more safely.
The negative effects of alcohol on driving are far less ambiguous.
Excuse me, sir, could you join me at the side of the road, sir? I believe you may have been drinking.
Alcohol limits for UK drivers have been in operation since 1967, and breathalyzers have helped police enforce these limits to great effect. As yet, there is no equivalent drug drive limit or a suitable device to measure it. And until recently, police have had little specific training to deal with the problem.
And the reading is 0.
The breathalyzer test is a familiar sight on Britain's roads. But now police have introduced roadside assessments for suspected drug drivers.
What the roadside fitness impairment tests have allowed is a formalisation of accepted practices that have been used in the United States with their field sobriety tests for decades. Head back, eyes closed.
The tests are designed to assess the suspect's balance and coordination, as well as their ability to divide attention between simple tasks. An examination of a suspect's pupil size can also help determine the presence of drugs.
Left 3.5.
The tests that police use at the moment may not appear to be very scientific, but they are actually quite effective in picking up drivers who may be impaired, and you have to remember they're only part of a wider process to give the police officer more confidence to take forward a case of drug driving. And they're certainly the best tests that we've got available at the moment.
As yet, the government has no plans for a major drug driving campaign. And whilst drink driving seems to pose the greater risk, it's worth remembering that the consequences of being high behind the wheel can be just as severe.
Drug drivers would face the same punishment as drink drivers. They would be looking at, upon conviction, a substantial fine and a lengthy period of disqualification from driving.
When winter comes, there's no better place to be than behind the wheel. That is, of course, if you stay off the roads and head for the hills. Rallying at this level is all about driving on the edge, and sometimes over it. But what does it take to be a top driver?
Well, you need 3 things: skill, courage and money. Lots and lots of money. But if you still fancy yourself as the next McRae or Burns, there are cheaper options.
First thing you need to do is learn some key skills. Courses start from around £200 at rally schools across the region.
This will be completely different to how you've been driving on the road. Using a lot more steering input. You don't normally go down tracks like this at the speed that I'm going. But this car can take it. The tyres, the roll cage, suspension are all designed specifically to go over bumps and through corners like this. Once you're happy with the gravel, you're going to need a car, and something like this is ideal. It's a Group N, which means only the most basic of changes are allowed, like competition tyres, upgraded suspension, and of course a roll cage. The idea is to keep it simple and cheap.
And what's even better, many manufacturers are now running their own one-make cups, so you'll be competitive from the word go. VW Racing will even sell you a brand new ready-to-rally Polo for £13,000. Now motorsport doesn't get much cheaper than that. But having the right car is only half of it. To be successful in rallying, you need a co-driver. And former national rally champion here, Gethin Jones, has bravely taken up the hot seat.
So Gethin, tell us about what the role of the co-driver is.
Well, co-driving is really important that driver and co-driver have a great relationship, almost like husband and wife, really. You have good trust in each other, and the co-driver's going to tell the driver exactly what's coming up.
And you're reading the pace notes, yeah, most of the time?
Yeah, most of the time reading pace notes. I mean, you hear all this mumbo-jumbo over the intercom, say all these numbers coming out.
That's right, what are they?
Well, different things relate to different drivers. Personally, I use what's called a 1 to 9 system.
Right.
So a 1 right would be a 10-degree right-hand corner. 9 right would be a 90-degree corner.
Okay. Watch out for the...
That's it. It's getting sliding through here, Darren. Come on.
Use a left foot braking technique. I don't really use that too much when I'm driving on the circuit.
No, a different technique on circuit really to rally driving.
Yeah, a bit of maybe a handbrake turn here, eh?
I think a handbrake turn will go down really well. Oh, Darren, I don't know.
Oh, God, not too bad.
I don't know, you obviously haven't got a handbrake in your race car, have you?
Get through that edge.
Darren, bear me off! Here we've got a right 7 in between the gates. That's how I describe it.
Oh,
maybe into the gates in this case.
Maybe not into the gates. Oh my goodness.
No, where are we going?
Oh, that's what I thought you meant to do.
Darren, we're not an off-roader.
That's more like it. We like rallying. Ready to take on the World Championships. Gethin? Me and you? No?
Sorry, Darren, mate.
Come back.
Off. I'm not coming back, mate.
Pulling Power is back in 2 weeks. Tomorrow evening at 7:30, we'll be examining the state of Britain's postal service.